Are you a new cat owner wondering when you can start feeding your kitten wet food? Are you trying to figure out how often to feed your kitten and what type of food is best? If so, then this video is for you. We'll discuss the basics of kitten nutrition, including how old kittens have to be before they can start eating wet food. Understanding kitten development. As kittens grow from newborns to young adults, they go through several stages of development. At birth, kittens are completely dependent on their mother for nutrition. They need her milk for proper growth and development. Around 3 weeks old, kittens can begin to take in some solid foods. This is the right time to start introducing wet food to them. By 6 to 8 weeks, kittens are fully weaned and can eat a diet of wet and dry food. It's important to understand the different stages of a kitten's development in order to properly feed them. Kittens need the right nutrients at the right time in order to grow and thrive. Wet food provides kittens with the essential nutrients they need to stay healthy. It's important to start introducing wet food to them at the right time, so they can get the nourishment they need. How much wet food should a kitten eat? When introducing wet food to kittens, it's important to understand how much wet food they should consume. Kittens typically need to eat 2 to 4 tablespoons of wet food daily, depending on their age and size. While kittens are growing, it's important to feed them enough wet food to meet their nutritional needs. Your veterinarian can also help you determine how much wet food your kitten should be eating. It's important to feed your kitten wet food consistently throughout the day, rather than one large meal. If your kitten isn't eating the amount of wet food they should be, you may need to switch to a different formula or try warming the food slightly to make it more palatable. When can kittens start eating wet food? Kittens can start to eat wet food from around a few weeks of age alongside milk from their mother, as part of the weaning process. Generally, kittens will start to be ready to take small tastes of solid foods and water at around 3 to 4 weeks of age. By 4 weeks old, kittens are ready to begin weaning. Under 4 weeks of age, kittens are considered neonatal and might not be ready to consume solid foods. You can start introducing wet food with kitten formula or mix it with wet food to get the ball rolling. Between 6 and 8 weeks, kittens are fully weaned from their mother's milk and can start eating moistened dry kibble or wet food. With this in mind, it is important to pick the right wet food for your kitten's age and nutritional needs. Picking the right wet food for kittens. When selecting wet food for your kitten, it's important to choose a variety that is specifically formulated for kittens. Kitten food is higher in protein, fat, and other key nutrients than adult cat food, meaning it is designed to meet the needs of growing kittens. Additionally, wet food should not contain any artificial preservatives, colors, or flavors, as these may be harmful to a kitten's developing system. Before feeding your kitten wet food, always consult your veterinarian for advice on the best product for your pet. Introducing wet food to a kitten's diet. Introducing wet food to your kitten's diet can be a fun and rewarding experience. To get started, it's important to understand the basics of kitten development. Kittens should be between 3 and 4 weeks old before being introduced to wet food. Before that, kittens need to be nourished by their mother's milk or a replacement milk formula. Once they are old enough, you can start to mix the wet food with kitten formula and let them eat it from a dish. This will help to get them used to the texture and taste of wet food. As they get older, they can be gradually transitioned to pure wet food. It's important to look for a kitten-specific wet food as this will provide them with the right nutrients for their growing bodies. It's also important to make sure the food you choose is age-appropriate. You should also pay attention to the frequency of meals. Kittens need to be fed 3 to 4 times a day and their daily diet should be split into small meals. This will help to ensure that they get all the nutrients they need. Feeding frequency for young kittens. Kittens require frequent feedings to support their rapid growth, so it is important to provide them with small meals several times a day. Wet food should be offered to kittens twice a day, between 3 and 4 weeks of age. Start with a teaspoon of wet food per meal and increase the amount as the kitten grows. As the kitten grows and becomes more active, you should increase the amount of wet food they are eating. Keep in mind that the amount should always be adjusted based on the age and activity level of the kitten. Be sure to monitor their weight and body condition to ensure they are getting enough, but not too much food. If your kitten is overweight or underweight, adjust their meals accordingly. Signs of nutritional deficiencies in kittens. Kittens need proper nutrition to stay healthy and grow strong. If your kitten isn't getting enough of the right kind of nutrition, they may begin to show signs of nutritional deficiencies. Some of the most common signs include weight loss, a dull coat, diarrhea, and decreased energy levels. If you notice any of these signs in your kitten, it's important to take them to the vet to get them checked out and get a proper diagnosis. A veterinarian can help you identify any potential nutritional deficiencies and provide recommendations on the best diet for your kitten. Options for picky eaters. Kittens can be picky eaters, just like humans. If your kitten is not interested in the wet food you have chosen, don't worry. There are plenty of options out there to find a wet food that your kitten loves. Try different flavors and textures, or even offer a combination of wet and dry food. You can also try different brands to see which one your kitten prefers. If all else fails, you can try offering a mix of wet food and kitten formula as a transitional food. With some patience and trial and error, you can find a wet food that your kitten loves. Common mistakes for feeding wet food to kittens. When it comes to feeding your kitten wet food, there are a few common mistakes you should try to avoid. One of the most common mistakes is not introducing wet food early enough in the kitten's life. Kittens are ready to start eating wet food as early as 3 weeks old, so waiting too long can cause them to miss out on important nutritional benefits. Another mistake to avoid is not mixing wet food with kitten formula when first introducing it. This helps kittens get used to the taste and texture of wet food and also provides them with the nutrition they need. It's also important to avoid overfeeding your kitten. Kittens should only eat about 5 tablespoons of wet food per day, divided into 2 or 3 meals. Too much wet food can cause your kitten to become overweight. Finally, it's important to provide proper hydration. Kittens need to have access to fresh water at all times, as wet food can be dehydrating. Ensure that your kitten always has a clean bowl of fresh water available. What to know about feeding wet food to kittens? When it comes to feeding wet food to kittens, there are a few things you should keep in mind. Kittens are still developing and growing, so it's important that they get the right nutrition and that their diet is balanced. Too much wet food can lead to malnutrition, so it's important to stick to the recommended amounts. You should also make sure that the wet food you give your kitten is specifically made for kittens, as adult food can be too hard for them to digest. Always make sure that the food you give your kitten is fresh and that it hasn't been left out for too long. Lastly, be sure to check the expiration date on the wet food you give your kitten to ensure that it is still safe to eat. Feeding wet food to kittens is a great way to give them the nutrition they need, but it's important to make sure you're doing it safely.